Right, we are now at our final session of the day, and as I said at the beginning, last but not least, our CSA Awards. This is something I've been really looking forward to. So we're going to hear from Professor Sarah Sharples, who is Chief Scientific Advisor at the Department for Transport. She joined us in the summer, and one day a week she remains Professor of Human Factors at Nottingham University. So as a female engineer, she very much recognises some of the ED&I issues we were talking about earlier in today's agenda. She's fought her way up through a male world in engineering, and I'm very pleased to introduce her in a moment. She was not able to join us today because today is her Nottingham Day, but she has recorded a pair of videos for us, and so can we play the first video, please?
I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you all today as we explore some of the fantastic work that's taken place in the TRIG projects, the Transport Research Innovation Grant projects that have been led by the Department for Transport. And as the new CSA for the Department for Transport, I'm really sorry that I can't be with you all today, and hope that you all have a fantastic time. And I look forward to catching up with some of the specific project teams later in the year. So being a Chief Scientific Advisor for the Department for Transport is a fantastic job. It gives me the opportunity to learn about so much science and innovation that's taking place in the wider research ecosystem, and really think about how we as a Department for Transport can make sure that we organise ourselves to work with external SMEs, academic groups, and larger industry groups to really get that balance between the need to innovate within our transport system, but also make sure that we're delivering an effective and efficient transport system. The way I've been talking about my job as Chief Scientific Advisor is in terms of my role in assurance. So how can I provide that assurance to the colleagues within the department, to the ministers and the Secretary of State, to the Permanent Secretary, that we're doing the right research that's having the right impact at the right time. One of the really interesting things about innovation is we sort of need to be fortune tellers. We need to be doing the science and innovation now that is going to make a difference in the near and the longer term future. So making sure that we've got all of the consortia and the ideas lined up to address not only the challenges of now, but the challenges of the future is one part of my job. So that brings me on to another aspect of the role, which is about influence. Influence is about shaping what we do. Those of us who work in the world of transport know there is so many problems to tackle. There are so many different things that we could explore if we want to improve our transport systems as a whole. But actually what we need to do is we need to prioritise. We need to identify what is the urgent requirement that, for example, will take us on the right path to decarbonisation, will address the critical challenges that we might have around capacity of our transport system in the UK, and also that will reflect the wider societal changes that we're seeing as a response to the COVID pandemic. As well as those priorities of assurance and of influence, I've also got the priority of advocacy. Now, this is probably the bit of the job that I love the most, being able to talk about the fantastic work that takes place both within the department, but also in the wider research ecosystem. And we're seeing some excellent examples of that type of project in the event today. And the reason it's so important for a Chief Scientific Advisor to be an advocate of research is sometimes it's not always obvious how or when research, development and demonstration has really made a difference. But we know that if we get that partnership working right between those who are delivering research and innovation and those who are making the critical decisions that we need in order to deliver our transport system, then we can get things right. And I know that today's examples that we see in front of us are really good illustrations of how research, development and demonstration can make a difference through innovation. So what is it that's so special about the TRIG project? I think the TRIG project is a beautiful example of an agile way of delivering that early stage funding that just allows us to take a chance on some projects. Research and development is all about taking risks. If we don't fund projects that fail, then we've not tried hard enough. When we're investing, particularly at the early stages of innovation, it's really important that we think about the different ideas that are out there and the mechanisms that might just help them take that next step to then be able to be brought to market. And I'm really pleased to see some of the examples that we have here today. The TRIG is a really important investment for the Department for Transport. It's not only an investment through the finance that's delivered to support the projects, but it's also an investment through the people from the Department for Transport. Those who you see here today who have been supporting the delivery of the programme, but also those who work in the policy and decision-making teams who are the key for taking our innovation ideas and bringing them forward into the wider transport systems as a whole. The Department for Transport aims to offer significant support to innovation across all of the modes that we deliver. Sometimes we have large grants that can be delivering tens or even hundreds of millions of pounds of research. TRIG really complements this large strategic activity around research with these quite small but quite significant grants that just help move projects along to the next step. The aim of TRIG is about developing new solutions, but it's also about building those partnerships and bringing the Department for Transport closer to the innovation ecosystem. But as well as coming up with those solutions, what's really key to all of this is delivering the people who form those teams, the people who become future leaders in transport technologies. We know that sometimes a technology might be developed in one domain and be applied to transport, or technologies that have emerged through transport might end up making a difference in other domains as well. So making sure that our awards are there and able to support the right people in our system is really, really important. And we know that many projects from TRIG have gone on to secure further funding to take the projects through the technology readiness levels with our partnerships in organisations like Innovate UK, who are really great for providing the funding for those larger scale development and demonstration pieces of work. So since 2014, we've invested over £6 million in almost 200 TRIG awards. And the current cohort that we're celebrating today continues to demonstrate the ingenuity and the breadth of innovators from both academia and SMEs within the UK. We've also recently announced the winners of the TRIG Zero Emission Flight competition, and those innovators are due to tackle the really important challenges that we see as we look to decarbonise aircraft and airspace more generally. So it's a real honour to have been asked to look at some of the projects and think about the Chief Scientific Advisor Innovation Awards. What I was looking for when I was looking at these projects was how has the TRIG funding really made a difference? So how have these projects delivered against the expectation of the TRIG funding? Have they delivered against their stated objectives? And have they worked effectively in partnership with colleagues within the transport system more generally? But we also looked, for example, in the Outstanding Innovation Award, at the level of the case that was made for the technology being an entirely new capability or making significant gains on existing capability within the system. And then we looked at our priorities within the transport systems. We know that there are some areas where it's really, really urgent for us to take action now. And the more we can get innovation to enable us to take action more quickly and more efficiently and more widespread across the UK, then they're the sort of projects that we're really, really interested in. So I'm really pleased to now be able to give out the awards that recognise the fantastic work that's been done by those in receipt of TRIG awards in the last year. The first award I'd like to give is for Outstanding Innovation. This is for the best genuinely new innovation, where a project could enable a new capability, to step forward within the transport system. And I'm really excited to be able to give this award to Armada for their air lubrication system. We know that innovation in maritime can be difficult. The sector's highly fragmented and margins are thin, so any help we can offer through TRIG is most welcome. The innovation that Armada have developed is an entirely passive system, which injects bubbles into the boundary layer around the hull of a ship. These bubbles reduce drag and hence fuel use across the board, and so they'll save fuel both now and energy later when maritime decarbonisation is complete. And either way, it's a really great innovation for shipping. The really interesting thing about this project is it's proved the concept of the passive air lubrication through both simulation and work in the aquatic equivalent of a wind tunnel. So it's had both that empirical testing and the modelling and simulation that we often see in engineering innovation. So we're really excited to see where this successful project will go next. So my next award is for Outstanding Growth Potential. This is for the innovation that I see as having potential to grow rapidly and having broad commercial success, as well as benefiting the transport system. The award goes to Power for their plug and charge project. For the EV drivers amongst us, finding the right place to charge can be a challenge, both in terms of knowing the location of charging sites and making sure they're operated by the right network for you to be able to use them. My OZEV colleagues call this problem payment roaming, and Power have come up with a solution. Their recent demonstration of charging a Renault Zoe with minimal human intervention is a big step in this direction. Once you've plugged your car in, the rest is automatic. The Power app and platform work out which charger you're using, share car details with the operator, negotiate payment, and finally initiate charging. All of this takes place without typing numbers into a keypad, remembering passwords, or any significant delays, and overcomes the barriers to delivering payment roaming. As a human factors expert, this one really appeals to me because we know that sometimes these difficult steps in the process of dealing with new technologies can put users off, can stop them embarking on using new innovations. So this has plugged a really, really important point in the market, excuse the pun. Anything which helps the transition to EVs amongst the road fleet is a boon. And when it has a really well thought out user experience like this, it's even better. So well done to Power. My final award is for Outstanding Social Impact. This is going to be awarded to one of our D-TRIG projects that specifically looked at drones. And this project looks at enabling the responsible use of drones. I'd like to give this award to Snowdonia Aerospace for their Dragon's Roar or Ruo Drag project. Apologies for the pronunciation there, it's probably terrible. This project really caught my imagination. We all rely on our mobile devices, especially in emergency situations. But as has happened to many of us, what happens if you have no signal? Dragon's Roar seeks to address this issue by giving the emergency services the ability to fly a mobile telephone cell, a miniaturized base station up in the sky. In a scenario where people might be lost in a remote area or injured in a signal black spot, a drone can be put up which will not only give temporary coverage, but can also grab the connections of any devices trying to reach out, regardless of which network they're on. This can allow the localization of the source, as well as more sophisticated communication through data and voice. So a really, really great innovation that addresses a real challenge that we know can affect people every year. So I'd like to say a really big well done to all of our award recipients and all of our TRIG projects, and a massive thank you to all the teams that have taken part. As you've seen from the Minister's announcement, TRIG is growing and we're really pleased about this. Not only are we going to be able to offer more targeted calls by working with the Connected Places Catapult, including those calls specifically focused on areas such as drones, so D-TRIG, and A-TRIG, our accessibility programme. But we've also grown the scope of the main TRIG call for this year to a maximum of 53 projects, an enormous improvement. This is built on and enabled by the success of TRIG and therefore the work that all of you have done. And I hope it shows how committed the Department for Transport is to transport innovation and to helping innovative SMEs succeed. We know that we need to invest now if we're going to address the problems of the future. So I look forward to seeing the 2020 cohort take their next steps, and I really look forward to the outcomes of the ongoing D and A TRIG projects. I wish you all luck on your innovation journeys, and I'll hand back to James, who's going to be introducing our winners to give you a little more detail on their fantastic work. Over to you, James.
So as Sarah said, next up, we're going to have some pictures from our award winners. They're all very worthy. They're all great examples of transport innovation. And I'd like to go first to Amada to hear a little bit about their air lubrication system project. Over to you, Amada.
Hello. Good afternoon. And can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you, Roger.
Excellent. And I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see my screen okay?
Coming up, I think. There we go.
Have you got my...
Not yet, Roger.
Okay. There we go. You should be able to see that. Hello? Yep.
I think we've still just got you, Roger, at this end.
Oh, right, okay. Share. Okay. Got it now?
No, it's still... Oh, here we go.
There we go, yes.
We've got your slides.
Okay, right, okay. Thank you very much. Apologies for that. So, who am I? Well, I'm Roger Armson. I'm a former Merchant Navy officer. Been in the shipping industry for 40-odd years, and this ship on the screen as you see it is the first ship I sailed on long time ago. And there's 53,000 merchant ships on the planet. So, what I want to talk about in terms of what's the problem? Well, our planet is totally reliant on merchant ships. Moves about 90% of world trade, and as you'll all recall from the Suez blockage, when things go wrong in merchant shipping, we all know about it, but when it doesn't, we don't really think about it too much. Merchant shipping emits around about the same pollution as Germany, and we have real hard targets to reduce our consumption by 40% by the end of this decade and 70% by 2050. So what's the opportunity that we see? Well, we need a solution that's going to be universally applicable to ships at all drafts. It's going to have to be able to use the zero carbon fuels, and it's got to be high performing, double-digit improvement in performance. And the DFT estimate that for these sort of systems there's a market out there of about 2 billion by the end of this decade. So what are the opportunities to reduce fuel? Well, I'm not going to go through those, but the main thing in my experience when I've been at sea is reducing speed, and as we know from Suez and the Ever Given, that's not really an option. So what have we got? Air lubrication inspired by ducks. That's because ducks have bubbles in their feathers to make them go faster for less energy. Air bubbles under ships reduce friction, and currently on the market there are systems, but they use compressors. As you can see, problem with compressors is they're highly expensive in terms of fuel usage, of time, etc., etc. And you can have up to 16 to 24 of these things on board a vessel. So what about our system? Well, we believe our system is revolutionary in the sense that it does not use compressors. As Sarah said, it's passive. We think it's difficult to copy because of the way that we've built our system. But just as importantly, it's economic. Ship owners, as Sarah said, operate in very thin margins. I know that. So they're looking for paybacks of 2 years, IR 20%. It's simple to install, and we can also add things like AI control. So that's our system. We're currently talking to 3 ship owners who are very interested in it. And yeah, watch this space. And just finally, I'd like to say thank you very much to Trig, to Alice and to Sarah and their teams, and to all those folks at Newcastle University, which is where we did our tank testing on the cavitation tunnel, which came from Germany at the end of the Second World War. And so I'd like to thank specifically Dr. Simon Benson and Dr. Amanda Gregory to them and their teams. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Roger. I'm slightly disappointed you didn't put feathers on the bottom of boats, because I think that would have been lovely. But yeah, great example with the air lubrication system of an idea that's come straight out of university. Trig's been able to give it a bit of a boost, and it's shown some really great early promise. So next up, we're going to leave the world of maritime, and we're going to come back to dry land and four wheels, and we're going to hear from Niall at Power, whose innovation is all around breaking down the payment roaming problem in EVs and EV charging. Niall, how you doing?
Hi, Niall.
Very well, thank you. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your innovation?
I certainly can. I'm just going to pop my screen up, and you're going to hopefully be able to tell me you can see that.
We can.
Through.
Oh, no, we've got...
Nope. There we go.
Got it.
Great. So first of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you for the team that supported us through T-Trig, but more specifically for the award, which we're delighted to receive. It is our first award. We're a very early stage business, but we're trying to make great strides forward in the world of simplifying public electric vehicle charging. So my name is Neil Riddle. My co-founder, Andre Pino, is the one who's done all the clever technology that sits behind this. And I have to mention him because I'm really accepting this award on his behalf. So what we're trying to do is simplify public charging. And the first way we want to tackle that is by looking at building an electric fuel card that enables fleets to find, charge and pay for public charging. And one of the things I always like to start with at this stage is the story of why we're doing this. And for those of you who don't drive electric cars, the first thing to observe is that electric charging is more complex than refueling your petrol or diesel car. So what are all those problems? They are complexities around finding the chargers, the complexities around the fact they're hidden, sometimes they're broken, they're not always the right charger for your car. When you arrive, you've got to find a way to pay, they don't always accept credit cards. And from a fleet's perspective, you can't always get a receipt. So this leads to a situation which some fleets have described as operationally impossible. And yet public charging is a huge part of the electric vehicle charging ecosystem. So we're trying to simplify that and make that easier. So those networks out there, and we know there are a growing number, an increasing number of sites, an increasing number of charger types. There are about 70 today, if not more than this. And that makes every single experience difficult and unique. You have to have multiple subscriptions, multiple apps, multiple cards. And as I've mentioned, getting receipts can be a nightmare. So we're trying to enable a booking.com of EV charging by aggregating multiple charge point networks together and simplifying it for the driver through one simple application. We're delighted to say that we have already signed deals with Osprey, Mer, Chargy, Fastned, and we're in discussions with our colleagues Morales, who were on the stage earlier. And this is an opportunity for us to do a bit of fortune telling, as Sarah suggested. We're looking to a future where we can make this even easier. So what we assessed through the T-Trig program was something called plug and charge. And it is almost as boring as it sounds. You arrive at your charge point, you plug in the car, and charging starts automatically. Now, for some, those who drive Teslas, this has been the norm, but we're trying to enable this for a broader set of drivers. We want to make public charging better than using a petrol station. So we're just removing that last step of the journey and providing an ultimate consumer experience. Through the program, we developed a proprietary algorithm. We assessed a number of different routes, but in the end, we decided that building our own solution was the best. We've built a capability that means that most modern electric cars can plug in and charge with power charge point partners. In effect, the car becomes a payment token. So we're changing that payment and roaming ecosystem into one whereby the car is the key token that you require to start your charge event. And we've demonstrated this capability in Reading with a Renault Zoe and a Mer AC EV charge point. We need to do some simple initial driver setup, but after that, we simply went ahead, plugged in the car, and charging started. Now, because it's so boring, I've decided to show you a very boring video of how simple this solution is. So this is an example of an Osprey charger where you pull in, You find the charger, you select the right connector, you take that connector, connect it to the vehicle, you then leave your car and charging starts, which makes life super simple, which we believe is the future of electric vehicle charging. So I'd be delighted to have a conversation with anyone who's interested in this ecosystem or is interested in the broader ecosystem of electric fuel cards and simplifying this space. So thank you once again for this award. We're delighted to have received it and we're looking forward to bringing this to more people as we move forward. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Neil. I didn't think it was boring. I think it's quite exciting, but then I know quite a lot about the barriers that we kind of really care about in transport, and getting more people to use EVs is one of our big objectives. You know, the massive majority of the emissions that come from the transport system come from the road, and most of those are from light vehicles. So anything we can do to make that better is a great step forward. Were you going to come in then, Bex?
No. Just,
okay.
Yeah, agree.
Just say thank you very much, Neil, and well done. And
you.
we'll make sure you get a certificate and a copy of the video, which I'm sorry again didn't play properly. So we were going to hear from Jeremy from Dragon's Roar for our last award, but I'm afraid Jeremy has not been able to get the IT to work. We're talking to him on the phone, but he's not able to get in for one reason or another. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview. As Sarah explained, it's the concept around flying a miniaturized base station to let the emergency services put out an emergency network when there's a search or they think someone's missing. And you know, this award, this innovation received its award for its social benefit. So we had loads of great drones projects in D-Trig in the drones call from right at the beginning of this year, but this one stood out in the sort of the fact that it was going to solve a social problem that there really wasn't a solution for. And as we get more and more dependent on our devices, as Sarah said, we just expect them to work, and if they don't, we can be left in a very difficult point. But hopefully we'll be able to get Jeremy to have a chance to pitch at a future event, but I don't think we're going to hear the Dragon Roar today, sadly.